Okay, picture this. A disaster strikes. Not the big, loud Hollywood kind, but the real kind. The kind where a road just vanishes, where a local shop is boarded up, and a family that was doing just fine yesterday is suddenly staring at an empty cupboard. And right into that chaos, help starts to arrive. Humanitarian agencies ready to do some good.
So, let's get right into it. For decades, our instinct has been pretty simple, right? People have lost everything, so you bring them things. You ship in aid, you truck it to them, and you hand it out directly. I mean, it's a powerful, deeply human thing to do. But, and this is a big but, we've learned a really hard lesson over the years. Sometimes that very instinct, that incredible urge to help, can actually end up making things worse. You see, under the surface of every community, there's this living, breathing thing. It's the market system. It's that network of local traders, farmers, and drivers. And when aid comes in completely blind to that system, it risks shattering the very engine that people need to recover on their own. So the big question becomes, how do you help without accidentally hurting?
Now take a look at this picture. This is just a simple bridge in Indonesia, built by villagers after a massive tsunami, and it's such a powerful reminder of something we often forget. Recovery doesn't start when the big aid trucks show up. Nope, it starts the second the disaster is over, with people using their own local know-how, their own systems, to start putting their world back together.
And this right here, this lays out the central dilemma so perfectly. On one side, you have that totally understandable instinct to just bring in stuff, but on the other, you have this devastating unintended consequence. When you flood a local market with free goods, you can literally bankrupt the local shopkeepers and traders, the very people who form the backbone of a real, lasting recovery.
So, to get around this problem, a whole new way of thinking started to emerge. It's called EMMA, and honestly, it's a total game changer in how we think about humanitarian aid. EMMA stands for Emergency Market Mapping and Analysis. Now, don't let that technical-sounding name fool you. This is not some complicated thing for economists sitting in an office somewhere. It's a tool built for people on the front lines, in the mud, during the first chaotic weeks of a crisis. The whole point is to get good enough answers, and fast, so that aid workers can make smart calls and avoid those classic, harmful mistakes.
At its core, EMMA just breaks the problem down into 3 common-sense questions. First, the gap analysis. What do people actually need right now? Second, the market system analysis. Is the local market still working? And if it is, how? And then third, the response analysis. Okay, based on that, what's the absolute smartest way to help people without wrecking the local system? It's a simple logic, but it's incredibly powerful. All right, let's see how this actually works in the real world. We're going to Haiti, right after some terrible floods just wiped out farming communities. Beans are a staple food there. I mean, they're an absolute necessity. And after the floods, families suddenly couldn't get them.
Now, the traditional response would be to immediately start shipping in tons and tons of beans from overseas. It seems like the obvious solution, right? But the EMMA team hit pause, and they ask a totally different question. Is the problem really that there are no beans in Haiti, or is something else going on here? To get it, you have to look at the before picture. This is a snapshot of a typical family's budget before the disaster. They've got about $285 a month. Yeah, a lot goes to food and farm supplies, but they're making it work. They have a system. And then, this is the after. Just look at that drop. Their income got cut by more than half, down to just $114. Their own farm production is gone. Pretty much every single cent is now going to the absolute basics. This is what the economic shock of a disaster actually looks like. So what did the EMMA team find? Well, here it is. The key insight. The market system was definitely hurt, but it wasn't dead. Local traders still had beans in their warehouses. Wholesalers still had stock. The problem wasn't a lack of beans in the country, it was access. Roads were washed out, and on top of that, families had no cash. They simply couldn't get to the market. And that one insight changed everything. Instead of importing tons of food, aid agencies gave cash transfers, putting money directly into the hands of families so they could buy from local traders. They also bought supplies straight from Haitian wholesalers. Think about that. It pumped money into the local economy, it kept businesses afloat, and it was way more efficient than international shipping. It was just smarter, faster, and way more dignified. Okay, so let's jump to another case, a completely different context. Now we're in Myanmar, where a flood wiped out the boats, the nets, the engines, basically the entire livelihood of fishing communities. And again, the first thought was, we've got to bring in new equipment. But before they ordered a single fishing net, The Emma team went out and just started talking to people. They asked local business owners these really simple but powerful questions, like this one, straight out of their toolkit. What are the main problems you face in doing business right now? And they discovered something amazing. The gear was already there. A local rental market for fishing equipment, one that had been there for ages, was still up and running. The supply chain was fine. So just like in Haiti, the real problem wasn't availability, it was affordability. Families had lost everything and just couldn't afford to rent the tools they needed to get back to work.
So the smarter response became crystal clear. Instead of donating new equipment, which by the way would have instantly killed those local rental businesses, the agencies provided cash and vouchers specifically for renting equipment. This gave people their purchasing power back and kept the local market alive, making sure it would still be there for the community long after the aid agencies left.
Okay, so let's pull the camera back for a second, because these stories from Haiti and Myanmar, they're not just one-offs. When you start to look at crises all over the world, this really powerful pattern starts to show up.
I mean, look at this. After the floods in Pakistan, traders had supplies, but getting them there was the problem. During the drought in Kenya, there was grain in other parts of the country, but people had no money to buy it. After the earthquake in Nepal, suppliers were ready to sell, but access and income were the roadblocks. Again and again and again. It's the same story.
And this is the core lesson right here. Markets are so much more resilient than we ever give them credit for. They don't just shatter into a million pieces in a crisis. No, they bend, they stretch, they find new ways. The people inside them, those local traders and entrepreneurs, they are the true first responders of economic recovery.
So what this all boils down to is something way bigger than just a toolkit. Emma is really a mindset. It's a completely different way of seeing a crisis, and more importantly, seeing the people at the very heart of it.
First, it teaches us this fundamental truth. Availability is not access. Just because something exists somewhere in a country doesn't mean a thing if the people who need it most can't get to it or can't afford it. Second, it makes us realize that every single aid decision has an economic ripple effect. We can make a choice to strengthen local markets and empower people to recover on their own, or we can weaken them and create dependency. That choice is ours.
And maybe the most important piece of all is this. This whole way of thinking totally reframes how we see the people we're trying to help. When we design aid that works with local markets, we're doing so much more than just delivering supplies. We're recognizing people's dignity, their own power. We're treating them not as passive victims, but as what they've always been, the active, resourceful drivers of their own recovery. And that, well, that changes everything.